Welcome from Sananda. As this talk continues, you might like to let yourself relax into an open awareness. If you imagine your awareness as having a kind of boundary, for instance, at the physical level, you recognize that your physical eyes can see a certain range of wavelengths, but you know also that there are wavelengths both longer and shorter, and those your eyes are able to interpret into the colors of the world. And so using that as an analogy, imagine yourself being able to somehow relax your vision so that you're beginning to sense colors, wavelengths, qualities of light, just a little bit outside of the normal range. You will readily understand that this encouragement is, at least in part, to help you to continue to develop your ability to sense angelic presence in your world. For it is here, it permeates your world. But angelic energies, angelic wavelengths, so we use that kind of language, are very fine indeed. In general, not perceived by the physical senses. And so remember that use of your visual sensitivity as an analogy is just that, an analogy. But you have a range of senses that are not categorized as being of the physical body. The physical body is still involved because you're a physical being. And so with these finer senses, the physical body does a beautiful and evolving job for you of doing something similar to what I've just done, creating analogies for you that enable you to add some sense of those states of energy that are beyond the immediate apprehension of the physical senses to your range of perception. We might switch now the way of talking about this and talk about love. Certainly you're aware of physical aspects of feeling love. But it's not hard for you to recognize that there is much that you know to be love that is not, in the first instance, felt by your physical senses, though your physical senses come in and assist enormously. When we speak of your world, understand that this world is a construct. You yourself are the major investor in that construct. From some perspectives, you create all that you experience. From other perspectives, you are a co-creator with many. In any particular incident, we can say that you co-create that incident with all others who are involved, both immediately and peripherally. More broadly, we can talk of the human experience as being a co-creation by all who experience themselves as human. And that includes those who belong in your past and belong in your future. But there is another way of understanding or adding to those understandings that is relevant when we speak of angels. Consider that as beings of light, you have contracted the business of creating a reality to the angels. commission them to generate for you and hold in place a reality that you experience as your world. Very simply, you can imagine it as being provided with a theatre in which you may put on plays that you write, direct, act, and are audience for. You're the critics as well. But of course, it's more subtle than that. Now, allow your imagination to assist. Be aware of your third eye. Take a few breaths into your third eye as I continue to speak. Imagine each of those breaths traveling to the center of your head and adding to whatever light you experience as already being there. This suggestion is not designed to produce a magical transformation in your perceptions, but rather to assist you to relax into a deeper ease in relationship to your ability to perceive the richness and subtlety of all that is. Imagine, for simplicity, your reality as being something like a globe, a huge sphere, and you're at the center of it. In this age, your physicists suggest that this has a literal truth about it, that your universe extends in the same distance in every direction, and that therefore, in some mystical but also physically real sense, you always find yourself at the center of the universe. This gives you a basis for individual experience. It helps you to understand how you as an individual will always perceive the universe at least slightly different from everybody else. For each of you experience yourself as the center, and therefore everyone else is not quite at the center. As you move, as you evolve into a greater ease with the oneness of all the consciousness that makes up humanity, then there is a greater sense of you all being at the center together, without that feeling oppressive or difficult. This immense globe or sphere you might picture as being held in place by angelic beings, both supported in a void as a kind of symbolic way of describing it, but both, and this is perhaps closer to a meaningful truth for you, held in their consciousness, their awareness. So by analogy, we might say, therefore, that in issuing the contract to the angels, you are the designers, the architects, in some sense, of the reality in which you live. As beings of light, it seemed to you that this would be a valuable way of exploring more of what consciousness is, what light is, what beingness is, what life is. And having, with a kind of collective imagination, brought that design into a state where it can be made real, you request of the angelic beings that they do this, that they hold a universe in place until it is complete, and then allow it to dissolve. One version of the cosmology in which you exist is that all matter comes to dissolve into light ultimately. And this becomes the end of the universe. So the idea is a little similar. We might say that when you have learned all you can from your particular universe, to use a slightly older set of images, when you have mastered all its lessons, then the universe is, from your perspective, complete, and therefore it can dissolve and disappear. That angelic work on your behalf has been done. Why would angels then undertake this work? And what does it involve for them? From your perspective, angels can be regarded as completed beings. This may not be quite how it is for them, for they have understandings that are not yet available to you, and a recognition that there is growing beyond their own current status or way of being or experiencing themselves. But from your perspective, they are completed beings. Again, there's a simple way of expressing this. What makes them complete? They have aligned their wills with the will of the divine, the source of all, absolutely, 100%. This then gives them the possibility, the joy of being in total service to the source of all. Since we may postulate that it is the will of the source of all that all life becomes more alive, and that beings such as yourselves, the kind of consciousness that you experience yourselves as being, may grow more alive most effectively by employing free will. You yourselves, as those users of free will, those receivers of that gift, have decided, in a way that makes very good sense, that it is easier to understand the nature of free will by, to some extent, containing it, so that you exercise free will within a context, or within that sphere that is the universe as I pictured it earlier, and that you wish to set up in this reality a situation where you are simultaneously the creator of the environment in which you live and the experiencer of that environment. And that the part of that adventure is that your awareness of this fluctuates or increases as time goes on. And so that currently your experience is that you are more and more within the compass of one lifetime, giving yourselves the opportunity to appreciate that you are both the creator of your world and the experiencer of it. And in order that that realization can be experienced as a journey of discovery, there is the contracting out of the creator portion of the experience overall to angelic beings who, in alignment with divine will, are delighted to fulfill this function for you. So we could say then that the primary function of angels in terms of your world is to hold a reality in place that you may explore, and in your exploration of it, come to discover that you are everywhere, you are everything. But in that journey, your understanding of what you is evolves considerably. In and coming to know that you are all that this universe is, you successively abandon older and more limited models of what you might be. You find a greater freedom. By degrees, then, you come to discover a totality of freedom, and this universe that is held in place for you by the angels can dissolve. You begin whatever process is next for you, perhaps creating a new universe, perhaps something else entirely different. Time will tell, although we should also add that in dissolving a universe, you will also be moving beyond time as you know it. But if the primary function of angels is to hold the universe in place, then you might wonder why angels should be accessible to you at all. In the kind of image we've presented, you can picture them as holding this immense sphere in place, and because they're holding it, being in some measure outside it, not inside. But after all, the image I've given you is a very simple one. And you're well aware just how complex reality is. Indeed, you might say that every day gives you an opportunity to dive more deeply into the complexity of all that your reality is, all that life is, all that you are. So let us begin by suggesting that part of holding a reality in place is not about being outside of that universe, not holding that sphere up over the void, but actually permeating it with their presence. And that the journey of realizing that you are the creator of the universe, paradoxically, involves you coming to appreciate more and more readily the very fine beings with which you share the universe, the very fine beings that you have commissioned or contracted out this business of holding a universe in place. There are certain kind of qualities, then, that the angels demonstrate. Purity, clarity, the ability to focus awareness and light beyond anything that you can yet really imagine. In this sense, you might say that it is not that angels are outside of this universe holding it for you, but that you are inside an aspect of angelic consciousness that you experience as this universe that they're holding for you. And if you are to be inside the consciousness of the angels, it is their joyful duty to hold the space that they offer you with precision, with clarity, with purity, with absolute alignment with divine will and divine purpose and the divine plan. Part of doing that involves recognizing that every portion of life, every living being, beings like yourselves, the smallest forms of life that you are aware of, bacteria, for example, smaller again, that all are of the source, that all are therefore equally precious, equally to be held with love, in love. So far I have spoken of angels as one collective term. You know that that word in your language comes from an older word that means one who heralds or brings news. This too is part of the function of the angels who hold this reality in place, or in whose consciousness you discover a reality. In every moment, they are announcing the beauty of all it is, the potential within you for knowing the source of all wholly and absolutely, of becoming the source of all wholly and absolutely. They announce, but do not insist. It is, after all, the nature of the reality that you are exploring, that you are doing so with the gift of free will, to compel you to know how beautiful you are and how beautiful all it is, and how beautiful the source is not helpful for a being who is employing free will as a primary mode for understanding all that is. But you also exist within this reality as an individual being. Whilst the primary role of the angels is that we've described in relationship to you, you can experience angels as having an individuality, sufficiently like your own individuality to be relatable to. And the angels are highly comfortable with this. It is part of their joy to be able to interact with you where that is appropriate and helpful and in alignment with divine will at an individual level. It is quite impossible for you right now to even imagine how beautiful the angels find you. But, as I encouraged at the beginning, it can be helpful to allow yourself to relax into a little bit more imagining of this. You do not need to take this as an unscalable mountain to climb. All you ever need do is the next step. So let yourself imagine being loved a little bit more than you imagined yesterday, and continue in that way. This idea that the angels love you beyond any measure that you can find can be taken as an injunction to love yourself more. And certainly we encourage a deep appreciation of the wonder of your own being. But sometimes that injunction to love yourself more can be misinterpreted, misunderstood. This, as I'm sure you understand, is not about a kind of narcissism, a gazing into the mirror of the world and seeing only yourself. The mirror of the world is there to help you to see of yourself that which you do not yet know, rather than that which you do know. And so, in encouraging you to love yourself more, I am in effect encouraging you to love that which you do not yet know of yourself, rather than that which is familiar. But it is also just fine to like yourself a lot the way you are. So angels can also have an individual relationship with you, one that is very joyful for them. In respect for that guiding principle of free will, it is not their role to interfere in your life. Though you will have heard, no doubt, stories of angels intervening, and indeed you may have had this experience yourself, for it happens. But it happens under special conditions. It happens when you yourself, in some way, in a moment of extremis, for instance, find yourself leaping the boundaries of free will, and connecting with a higher aspect of your own being, which is operating under different principles. And there you can connect directly with the angelic assistance that is available and allow it into your life. In those brief moments of emergency, for example, you find that the outer skin, shall we say, of that bubble of universe that the angels hold for you is breached just a little, just for a moment, to allow angelic presence. But angelic intervention is not always that dramatic, not always in times of crisis, moments of emergency. There is also the opportunity, and this we encourage, to be in a playful, loving, exploratory, learning relationship with angels as individual presences in your life. There are many qualities, many kinds of angel, from those who work with the fine detail of the matter that makes up the universe. There are angelic beings who work with the quantum particles. There are those who work with entire planets, entire galaxies, and so on. There are angels who specialize in areas of emotion, for example, like clarity or love that we've mentioned before. And all of these beings have a presence that permeates your reality. As I said earlier, that presence is very fine. Do not blame yourself or be uncomfortable if much of their presence, perhaps all of their presence at this time, is not perceived by you. You're growing. Where you are now is not the same place you will be tomorrow. All is well. Be content with your own path of growth. But you are living in a time when the energies that make up your experience of the universe that you are in are going through profound and, in human terms, quite rapid change. New energies are becoming available to you, and it is characteristic of these new energies that they tend to reveal the presence of angels rather more readily than was before. And so allow it to be that perhaps sometimes out of the corner of your eye, literally or metaphorically, you glimpse an angel. Some of you over the years have had fun with playing with the symbolic appearance of angels. The appearance of the white feather, for example. These kinds of games can be enjoyable. Time comes when you tend to move beyond them, but they can be a great way of introducing the possibility of playing with angelic presence. Feel free to, although this may initially seem a contradiction to some of the things I've been saying, to invite angelic help. That help will be given, but it will be given in accordance with divine will and the laws of the universe. So after all, there is no contradiction. And part of the way in which angelic help can be given is through you opening your awareness to angelic presence. Effectively, what happens is that a part of your energy field of which you are aware begins to move into harmony with angelic presence and angelic energies. There are aspects of your being that are very much in harmony with angelic presence already, but they've tended in the past to be somewhat outside of your normal awareness. Leaping to those levels in moments of emergency is another way of explaining those remarkable tales of angelic help that you may have read or even experienced. So as you open for angelic help, at least a part of you moves into harmony with the angels who are here to help you. And so it becomes not so much the case that the angels deliver help to you, the greater being to the lesser, but more that you lift your vibrations to match theirs They may be dropping their vibrations to meet you halfway, so to speak. That's fine. That's cooperation. And in doing so, no longer is it the case that the greater being helps the lower, but you move into a co-creation where each being is able to recognize the beauty of the other. The angels already recognize your beauty. The problem has been that you don't recognize your own, and in addition, you may have some difficulty in recognizing the beauty of the angels. But more than anything, then we would suggest that allowing yourself to open to recognize the wonder of your being, presence of angels in your life, the wonder of your being, the wonder of the universe in which you live is unlimited, ultimately infinite. And as you open to that sense of the infinite wonder of being, you begin to take yourself away from a small identity, the limited identity that any personality self inevitably has, to a range of awarenesses that can allow the presence of angels to be much more readily apprehended. You may like then to see yourself as time moves forward, as you look into the future, to see yourself more and more traveling your chosen path with angelic companions. Not all journeys are about trial and tribulation. Culturally, humanity has loved these stories, and why not? There are fine stories there. But your challenge now is to invent new kinds of story that are not about trial and tribulation, but about celebration and discovery of wonder, of knowing more and more of the wonder that all that is. There are still challenges there. The challenge is to see how wonderful life can be, rather than how you can get through the next trial. As this talk draws to a close then, give yourself a few moments. Let yourself move to the stillness within. Be aware of your heart, but also of that sense of a lightness at the center of your head. However much you sense it, or however little you sense it, or imagine it. Your crown too, let the crown center be open. Imagine the crown opening to beautiful spaces of light above, and amongst those spaces are the angelic spaces, the angelic realms. And if it is your choice, simply welcome in angelic light, angelic love, angelic help, angelic teaching. There's much you can learn from the angels, but it is a learning beyond words, beyond concepts. It is there in the experience of being in the moment, of being alive, in being all that life is. And perhaps as we close now, you can feel something of the joy the angels experience in receiving your invitation. Thank you for listening.